In this episode, we talk about a ruling by Chhattisgarh High Court that has brought to the forefront the issue of marital rape. We also talk about CM Yogi Adityanath's response to the opposition's comments regarding the Mahakumbh stampede deaths. But first, we talk about the Odisha University's suicide case. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. The case at Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology University in Odisha, where a 20-year-old engineering student from Nepal committed suicide on Saturday, continued to snowball as police arrested 3 officials of the varsity and 2 security guards after the Odisha government took a strong note of physical assault and racial behavior by staff against the protesting students from Nepal. The state government is also expected to seek an explanation from the university authorities on action taken against the women staff who allegedly made offensive remarks against the agitating students. A purported video of the incident went viral where the women staff are heard saying that the amount spent by the founder of the university for free education of 40,000 underprivileged students was more than the annual budget of Nepal.
You are not safe here. Wherever you are safe, you go.
तुम हमारे फाउंडर सर को भी मानोगे नहीं?
मानोगे नहीं? फाउंडर सर के साथ मिलकर करोगे तो
हम लोगों को
40,000 बच्चों को वो आज भी खिला रहा है, बढ़ा रहा है, फ्री में बिठा के.
तुम्हारे कंट्री का उतना बजट होगा.
You yourself has done this to you. कल रात से समझा रहे हैं हम तुमको कि लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन टेक ओवर कर लेगा. तुम नहीं सुन रहे थे?
अभी पैक योर बिलोंगिंग्स एंड जस्ट लीव. और एल्स वी विल लीव एंड टेकन रिजर्व पुलिस विल कम.
नहीं कोई बोल नहीं. कोई सामान पैक करो. बोलो मत, सामान जल्दी पैक करो तो पुलिस आके पैक करेगा. सामान पैक करो. यहाँ कोई भी मुझे दिखाई नहीं देना चाहिए. जो भी यहाँ दिखाई देगा उसके आगे उसमें डिसिप्लिनरी एक्शन लूंगी.
Around 500 students from Nepal have been protesting on the campus, alleging that the student who committed suicide had complained about being harassed by her batchmate, who has been detained by the police and is being questioned. The university faced widespread outrage after the authorities at KITT asked international students from Nepal to leave the campus, which was later backtracked due to the involvement of Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and the country's embassy. In this segment, my colleague Ichha Sharma speaks to the Indian Express's Sujit Bisoy, who tells us more about the case and the legal actions being taken in the investigation.
Sujit, can you tell us what we know about the 20-year-old Nepali student and how things have progressed since the news broke?
On Tuesday, I met the father and some of her close family members and friends to know how she was as a student and how to know about her. So, according to the family and her close friends, she was a very bright student and just wanted to make a prosperous career in IT industry and to make her parents proud. So, what his father said during an interaction with us that barely 2 hours before she took the extreme step at around 2:51 p.m. on Sunday, she spoke to both of her parents and she told them that she'll call them back once she would return to their hostel room after the college fest that was going on in the campus. So the parents received the call at around 5 to 5:30 p.m. but that was from the university authorities who informed that their daughter has committed suicide and they've asked to reach Bhubaneswar as soon as possible. So the father said that both of them were speechless because they didn't have even an iota of idea that what she was going through. They were totally unaware about the mental harassment or the threat of blackmailing by the accused boy. She has never told this to her parents because according to some of her close relatives, she was a very introvert kind of girl who was not very outspoken about her issues and problems. What we know so far that between 5 to 5:30 p.m. the hostel authorities, they found that girl dead in her hostel room and they informed the police who came immediately and seized the body. Then they have taken it to the nearby hospital and where the doctors declare her dead. So now what police saying that the girl died by suicide and what her family and close friends are suspecting that she took the extreme step to end her life because of the continuous mental harassment and blackmailing by one of her batchmate from that university only, who has already been arrested by the police on the charges of abatement of suicide.
Right, and post this, there was a lot of unrest on the campus. So could you tell us how did the protests unfold and what were the main demands of the protesting students, particularly those from Nepal?
Well, by the time the news spread about suicide of the girl, the Nepali students whose number would be more than 500 according to the university authorities, they staged a protest on the campus and the demanding that the scientific team should immediately come and to collect the evidences and demanding justice for that girl. They staged dharna overnight till Monday morning. And the university authorities, they tried to discuss the issue with the agitating students, but on Monday morning there was a notification issued by the university authorities asking the Nepali students, international students from Nepal, to be very specific, asking them to vacate the hostel immediately. Then what the students are saying that buses were arranged, then the 4 to 5 policemen were also accompanied the university staffs, and they were asked to immediately pack their bags, then to board special buses from where they were dropped in nearby railway stations like Cuttack, Bhubaneswar, Khurda Road. The students said the university didn't even think about how they'll go and what they'll have on the way, because Nepal is altogether a different country.
And was there any evidence of administrative negligence or harassment that students pointed out?
That is what the agitating students from Nepal are alleging, because, the university from the beginning, if we can genuinely say that they are trying to cover up the issue, or in fact, they are trying to downplay the issue, because the university on Monday morning, they issued a statement when things gone out of control, when the students agitated overnight and didn't relent to the administration. Then the university issued a statement saying that the girl committed suicide because of a strained relationship with the accused who has been arrested. But what the students are saying that the accused was blackmailing her with threat like to make nude photos or intimate moments public, and he was mentally harassing the girl, for which the girl decided to take the extreme step.
Also, Sujit, what was the immediate reaction from the university administration after the incident?
See, things has gone, blown out of proportion only after, because of this unilateral decision of the university asking the Nepali students to vacate the hostel immediately. What only escalated the agitation by the students. Then the things has gone out of beyond the university administration's control after Nepal's Prime Minister has taken to X to mention that they have kept in close watch on the situation. They will deal the issue diplomatically. And in the evening, the Nepal embassy in India and New Delhi, they issued a statement over the issue, following which the Odisha government and government of India has also, they stepped up their action, forcing the university to backtrack their decision. The university then, in the morning, they issued a direction asking the students to vacate the hostels and to leave the campus. Then in the evening, they issued an appeal only after intervention of the Indian Embassy in Nepal and pressure from the state and central government, asking the students to return to their hostels and to remain on the campus actually.
As you mentioned earlier that, the university had asked the Nepali students to vacate the campus, which was like over 500 students. So has the university issued any official statement regarding why this decision was taken? And then, it was retracted, as you said.
No, so far they haven't. They stated that they asked to vacate the Nepali student to vacate the hostel for an impartial inquiry, but the students are saying that they were forcefully asked to vacate the hostel without any reason, just because they were protesting and trying to expose how the university authorities are trying to cover up the entire incident. If we'll get detailed into the case, the girl who committed suicide had reached out to the International Relations Office of the university, and not once, more than twice, she reached out to the International Relations Office asking with her complaint that the harassment she was undergoing. And what the university registrar has also admitted while talking to the Indian Express, but he said the university administration called both the students and counseled them and issued a warning to the accused student. But what the Nepali students are saying that had the university acted on her complaint, the issue would not have gone to this much extent today.
Also, we've seen that 3 university officials and 2 security guards have been arrested. So could you tell us what legal actions have been initiated so far and what's next in the investigation?
So far, the police has registered 2 cases, one against the accused boy who has already been arrested under the charges of abetment of suicide, and another case police has registered on the use of forces by the university staffs against the agitating students while they were protesting, demanding justice for the girl. So in the second case, the police arrested 2 security guards who were seen on multiple videos physically assaulting the agitating students, and 3 senior officers, director level officials, but hours after their arrest, they also released on bail now.
Also, Sujit, as you said, there is significant attention from Nepal on this case, and Nepal's parliament also strongly condemned the treatment of Nepali students at KIT. So, what specific concerns did they raise?
Right, Icha. As I said, the decision of the university asking the Nepal students to vacate their hostels immediately, there is a sharp reaction from from various corners, including the student bodies from Nepal. And Nepal's PM immediately reacted on the issue, and he asked the Nepal embassy in India to coordinate. He even sent 2 senior embassy officials to Odisha to deal with the issue with the local administration and to reach out to the agitating students. On Tuesday, there was strong reaction on the issue in Nepal's parliament, including members of the opposition parties. They demanding to take the issue with the highest authorities, with the government of India.
Right. And also, do we know if there has been any confirmed history of harassment or mental health struggles? Or was there any previous indication that students had concerns about their safety at the university?
So far, there is no past history. There were allegations, but it hasn't been established now. But in fact, there are allegations of multiple suicide in the past, but the university has handled the situation tactfully, except this one, which has gone out of their control.
And lastly, Sujit, India hosts thousands of international students, particularly from neighboring countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, and others. So could you give us an insight on if this case impacts India's reputation as an education destination?
What we just discussed that in the uproar, in Nepal's parliament, I think the education ministry in Nepal, they came up with a statement on Tuesday stating that in future they'll have to rethink about issuing NOC to the students to take admission in any institutions in Odisha if this issue will not be resolved appropriately. KIT is a reputed institution having around 40,000 students, including 2,000 students from various countries. And from among these 2,000 international students, around 40% are from Nepal only. So it will definitely impact the reputation of Odisha and the institutions among the international students.
And next we talk about a ruling by the Chhattisgarh High Court. The Chhattisgarh High Court, in a recent ruling, acquitted a man who had been convicted of raping his wife and committing quote-unquote unnatural offences. The man in question was arrested in 2017 based on his wife's statement, which was recorded before an executive magistrate on the same day she passed away at a government hospital. A trial court in Bastar's Jagdalpur later convicted him of culpable homicide not amounting to murder, rape and unnatural sexual offences, sentencing him to 10 years in prison. However, with the Chhattisgarh High Court acquitting him, the case has once again brought the issue of marital rape to the forefront, raising questions about whether Indian women have a legal recourse in such situations. To understand the basis of the High Court's decision and its implications, we have the Indian Express's Ajoy, Sinha, Karpuram joining us in this segment. Ajoy, let's begin with the case in question. Tell us what happened and what led to the ruling that has been given by the High Court.
So the Chhattisgarh High Court in January was hearing an appeal filed by a man against his conviction for the rape and death of his wife. He was convicted under Section 375 of the IPC, which is the section for rape, along with Section 377, which is the offense for committing unnatural offences, and Section 304, which is culpable homicide not amounting to murder. The High Court reversed the trial court's ruling essentially ruling that a husband cannot be convicted for committing an unnatural sexual offense against his wife, basically extending an exception that exists under the rape law to this section 377, even though those are two separate provisions altogether.
Right. And can you give us a deeper understanding of this ruling?
Right, of course. So under section 375, there is an exception, basically that says that a husband cannot be convicted for committing rape against his wife, which essentially means that there is no question of consent when it comes to sexual relationships in the context of a marriage. Like, there is no consent necessary for a husband from his wife. And the Chhattisgarh High Court ruling essentially held that even for offences under section 377, which after 2018, it has been interpreted to penalize non-consensual sexual acts between two people, and it does not contain this exception. But the Chhattisgarh High Court said because this exception exists within the context of the marriage, that will extend to other forms of allegedly non-consensual sexual behavior as long as it's within a marriage, even if the accusation is under a section that doesn't have this exception.
But as long as it's non-consensual, isn't sexual intercourse a crime?
It is not. Because of this exception, it is not a crime within the context of a marriage. According to the logic used by the Chhattisgarh High Court, there is no question of consent when it comes to parties within a marriage, when it comes to a husband and a wife. While there might be other sections where this can be punished, such as section 377, there is now a debate about whether this exception applies to every other offense in the book.
But Ajoy, what has been the usual recourse for women in similar cases before?
So because of this rape exception, there isn't a lot of recourse for women within the confines of a marriage. Section 377, what it did was, a route that was available for women, at least post-2018, was that they could file a case under this section 377. The Supreme Court in 2018 decriminalized homosexuality, which was earlier criminal under section 377 as an unnatural offense. The Supreme Court held that only non-consensual acts can be punished under section 377 from here on, post that ruling. And whether wittingly or unwittingly, what the Supreme Court did was create a route, an avenue for women who were victims of sexual offenses within their marriage to approach the court when they previously couldn't. Basically to say that I was a victim of a non-consensual sexual act, and this is the section I'm seeking recourse under. Because section 377 also carries the possibility of a serious punishment. It carries the possibility of life imprisonment. And it basically gave them an alternative route.
So, unnatural sex or unnatural offences were criminalized under section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. Can you tell us more about section 377?
Section 377 was introduced in 1861 and was modelled after the British Buggery Act of 1533. So while the offence doesn't directly mention homosexuality, it is modelled off a law that was directly meant to penalise homosexuality by targeting people who had anal intercourse. Basically, the Buggery Act of 1533 and eventually Section 377 criminalised any form of non-heterosexual sexual relationships, which included sodomy, which included bestiality, and any kind of sexual contact that was outside of the penile vaginal penetration norm. This law has been debated in India for even before the 2018 ruling at the Supreme Court. As far back as 1971, the Law Commission asked a question about Section 377. It asked two questions. It asked, should unnatural offences be punishable at all? And should there be an exception when the offense concerns acts done in private between consenting adults? And the commission eventually capitulated to public morality when it answered that question. It said, it acknowledged the possibility that there should be an exception for consensual sexual acts, but it eventually said, we are inclined to think that Indian society, by and large, disapproves of homosexuality, and disapproval is strong enough to justify it being treated as a criminal offense, even where adults indulge in it in private. So that's perhaps where the Indian government first considered the possibility of decriminalizing homosexuality. And by the year 2000, the attitude at the Law Commission had shifted enough to recommend repealing 377 altogether.
Right. Then what happened in 2018 when homosexuality was decriminalized, and how did that impact Section 377?
Then we get to the 2018 case, which is the Navdeep Singh Johar case, where the court, they didn't quite repeal Section 377, but they did what in legal terms is called reading down a provision. They basically said this provision will no longer apply as broadly as it does to punish all kinds of sexual acts outside of some accepted traditional forms of it. And from now on, it will only punish non-consensual unnatural offenses. Basically, they made the element of consent the key part of Section 377. The Supreme Court kept the offense on the books with the language that it currently has, which says whoever voluntarily has carnal intercourse against the order of nature with any man, woman, or animal, and said this does not include homosexuality. But then the question comes up, what does this mean? What does whoever voluntarily has carnal intercourse against the order of nature mean? The Supreme Court effectively said that it means non-consensual sexual activity, that it's restricted to non-consensual sexual activity, and that is what can be punished under this section. So it did not remove the section entirely, it kept it on the books.
Now, as you mentioned, Section 377 was read down. So how would you say that affected sexual offences and the rules regarding them?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, what the Supreme Court did with this ruling, whether it meant to or not, was provide an avenue for people who were victims of sexual offences who previously didn't have a recourse. So on one hand, yes, married women now had a route, but it was also more than that. It was broader than that. One of the things Section 377 did, besides give married women an opportunity to file cases against their husband in cases of sexual offenses, it gave men the opportunity to do that in case they were victims of sexual offenses. While all of the laws under this part of the IPC and now the BNS are framed in a way that it only sees men as possible offenders and women as possible victims, Section 377 had gender-neutral language, which means that anyone can accuse anyone else of committing a non-consensual sexual offense against them. And this also applies for people from the LGBTQI plus community. They too finally had a recourse under this section, which previously targeted them.
And Ajoy, what have been the experts' concerns as far as Section 377 being read down is concerned?
So the concern is now about the fact that there is no equivalent to Section 377 in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the new criminal law that has replaced the Indian Penal Code. Where previously this Section 377 exists, there is no Section 377 now for any cases that are being filed after this new law came into effect. And because of the reasons I mentioned earlier, because people found that it offered a measure of protection to men, people from the LGBTQ community, to married women, there is a outcry and there are proceedings now, or at least there were petitions for Section 377 to be revived. An advocate named Gantavya Gulati approached the Delhi High Court and sought a revival of Section 377. The Delhi High Court has effectively asked the central government to consider that petition a representation and consider a possible revival of Section 377. Meanwhile, a similar plea was filed at the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court basically said that it does not have the power to create a law, which it would basically be doing if it ordered the center to revive Section 377. So it asked the petitioner to approach the central government again.
But Ajoy, is there any effort being made to criminalize marital rape and for the protection of the members of the LGBTQI plus community against sexual offences?
So for members of the LGBTQI plus community, or rather just for transgender folks, there are some protections under the 2019 Transgender Persons Protection Act. There are protections against physical abuse, and they're framed rather broadly and they carry a lesser punishment. So it's not quite the same as providing specific protection to members of this community from non-consensual sexual acts. And as far as marital rape is concerned, that exception number 2, the marital rape exception, is under challenge at the Supreme Court. There was a split verdict at the Delhi High Court a couple of years ago, where two judges disagreed on whether these exceptions should be struck down. And because of that verdict, there is now a case pending at the Supreme Court about whether that exception should be struck down entirely.
And in the end, we discussed the comments that are being made regarding the Mahakumbh stampede deaths. On Wednesday, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath countered the criticism over the alleged mismanagement during the ongoing Prayagraj Maha Kumbh and asked the opposition to stop spreading baseless allegations, terming it akin to playing with the faith of these 56 crore people that have taken a dip in Prayagraj so far. Speaking in the Uttar Pradesh Assembly, Adityanath said, quote, "The event is of the society and the government is there as a servant to complete its responsibilities." Unquote.
और जब हम सनातन धर्म के खिलाफ, मां गंगा के खिलाफ, भारत की आस्था के खिलाफ या महाकुंभ के खिलाफ कोई भी अनर्गल प्रलाप करते हैं, कोई झूठा वीडियो दिखाते हैं, तो इन 56 करोड़ लोगों की आस्था के साथ एक खिलवाड़ है, भारत की सनातन आस्था के साथ खिलवाड़ है। और मैं विनम्रता से कहूंगा, ये आयोजन
His remarks came a day after West Bengal CM Mamata Banerjee slammed the UP government over the stampede deaths and claimed that Adityanath government was trying to hide the actual death toll. The TMC chief said, quote, "I respect the Mahakumbh, but what they have turned it into is sad. They are saying 30 people died, but thousands of bodies have been swept away. They have hidden hundreds of bodies to bring down the toll. Mahakumbh has turned into a Mrityu Kumbh, Kumbh of death, under the BJP rule." Unquote. Speaking on Wednesday, Adityanath said that the country and the world have participated in the event and has taken it to new heights of success, ignoring all the false campaigns. He said that the last 7 days of the Mahakumbh are left, and as per the figures, more than 56 crore devotees have taken a holy dip till this afternoon.
हमें भारत की सनातन परंपराओं के प्रति अगाध श्रद्धा का भाव है और उन श्रद्धाओं को सम्मान देना वो हमारा दायित्व है और ये हमारा सौभाग्य है कि इस सदी के इस महाकुंभ के साथ हमारी सरकार को जोड़ने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ और आयोजन के प्रति तमाम अफवाहों, तमाम प्रकार का दुष्प्रचार को दरकिनार करते हुए देश और दुनिया ने इस पूरे आयोजन के साथ सहभागी बनकर के इसे सफलता की एक नई ऊंचाई तक पहुंचाया है।
He also conveyed his sympathies with the people who lost their lives in the events related to the Kumbh. He said, quote, "Our sympathies are with all those who were victims of the stampede on 29 January and those who lost their lives in the road accidents while traveling for Kumbh. Our condolences are with the family members. The government will stand with them. The government will help them in every possible way. But how appropriate it is to politicize this." Unquote. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's episode was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Ichha Sharma and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.